The boy lived in a small house on the edge of the city with his father, his little sister, and his father's fiancée, a woman who seemed perfect on the outside, but was strict and controlling at home. Every morning, the boy would wake up to the same routine. His father busy with work, his sister quietly playing in the corner, and the fiancée watching everything with a sharp eye. The house felt tense, like everyone was walking on eggshells, and the boy could feel it, even though he was just 10 years old. His little sister, barely 5, was full of energy and curiosity, always wanting to run outside, play in the garden, or explore the small streets near their home. But every time she tried, the fiancé would stop her immediately, saying she was too small, it was dangerous, or she must always stay under supervision. The boy noticed how his sister's smile would fade when she was told no, and it hurt him deeply. He felt powerless because whenever he tried to speak up, the fiancé would glare at him, and his father seemed too busy to notice the tension building in his own home. The boy began observing every little thing the fiancé did, from the way she restricted his sister's movements to how she controlled even small choices, like what she could wear or when she could eat certain foods. It seemed unfair, and the boy knew that his sister didn't understand why she was being treated this way. She thought it was normal because she was so young, but the boy knew better. He carried the secret with him every day, a heavy weight on his small shoulders, a secret that could change everything if someone outside the family knew. At school, the boy tried to distract himself, but the worry never left him. He would watch other children playing freely and think about how different his little sister's life was. While others ran and laughed, his sister had to stay behind, obeying rules that didn't make sense to a child. He began to feel frustrated and sad, sometimes even angry, but he knew he had to be careful. One wrong word to the wrong person could make things worse at home. One evening, the boy's father came home late, tired and distracted, and the fiancé immediately began complaining about how the children needed to be disciplined. The boy watched his sister quietly, holding back tears as the fiancé scolded her for wanting to walk to the garden on her own. In that moment, the boy realized that he couldn't keep this secret forever. Someone had to know the truth. Someone had to help his sister. He didn't know who he could trust, but he knew he couldn't wait any longer. The boy began thinking about ways to show someone the truth without putting himself or his sister in danger. He started keeping small notes in his pocket, describing what happened every day, every rule the fiancé forced upon his sister. Every time she stopped her from doing something normal, it was his way of documenting the unfairness, a secret diary of courage and hope. Even though he was young, he understood that this evidence could make a difference someday. Despite the fear, the boy never lost hope. He believed that there was someone out there who would understand, someone kind enough to help. The thought of a better life for his sister kept him going. Every night, he would tell himself that he had to be brave, not just for himself, but for his little sister who couldn't speak up. He imagined her smiling freely, running in the garden, and laughing without fear. Those thoughts gave him strength. And then one day, something happened that would change everything. The boy met a kind and wealthy man, a millionaire by chance. While he didn't know the man well, there was something in his eyes, a warmth, a sense of understanding, that made the boy feel safe. For the first time, he thought maybe he could tell someone about the secret he had been carrying. He didn't know how the millionaire would react, but he felt a spark of hope, the first in a long time. The boy decided that this was his chance. He had to share the truth about his sister and the fiancé, even if it scared him. Even though he was small, he understood the importance of courage, and he was ready to take the first step. Little did he know, the moment he revealed the secret, everything in their lives would begin to change, and the boy's bravery would set a chain of events in motion that no one could have imagined. This was the beginning of a story about courage, truth, and the power of a young child's determination to protect someone he loved. It was a story that would inspire, shock, and teach lessons about standing up for what is right, even when the world seems unfair. The boy couldn't stop thinking about the secret he carried as he walked through the busy streets that afternoon. The city was loud and full of people, yet he felt completely alone, carrying a burden that seemed too big for someone his age. His little sister's sad eyes haunted him, and he knew he couldn't stay silent any longer, but he also didn't know who could help, who would listen and understand, without judging or turning him away. As he wandered near the old town square, he noticed a car parked by the fountain. Shining in the afternoon sun, a well-dressed man was stepping out, talking quietly on his phone, but when he noticed the boy staring curiously, he smiled warmly. It was not the kind of smile that children usually saw from adults. There was kindness, calm, and a sense of trust in it. The boy felt drawn toward him, as if some invisible force said, "This is someone you can talk to." Gathering all his courage, the boy approached the man. "Excuse me, sir," he said nervously, his voice trembling a little. "Can I ask you something?" The man bent down slightly, kneeling to meet the boy's eyes. "Of course," he replied gently. "What's on your mind?" The boy hesitated, unsure if he could speak the truth, but then he remembered his sister and the unfair rules at home, and he began to explain, carefully, in small pieces. "My father's fiancée, she won't let my little sister walk in the garden, or even go outside by herself. She says it's dangerous, but it doesn't feel right." The millionaire listened quietly, without interrupting, his expression thoughtful, but not angry. The boy kept talking, telling him about the small things he had been keeping in his secret notes. How she controlled his sister's clothes, what she could eat, and even what games she could play. With every word, the boy's fear lessened a little. Replaced by hope, he was finally being heard, really heard, by someone who seemed to care. "I see," the man said finally, his voice calm but firm. "That sounds very difficult, and it's not fair to your sister. You are very brave for speaking up." The boy blinked, surprised. Nobody had ever said he was brave before, not even his father, who was usually too busy or tired to notice the tension in the house. The boy felt a spark of confidence, as if this stranger had given him permission to be strong, to be the protector he always wanted to be for his sister. The millionaire reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook and pen, handing it to the boy. "If you want, you can write down everything that happens, everything you notice," he said. "Then we can figure out how to help your sister together." The boy's eyes widened. He had been keeping secret notes before, but this felt different, important, like it could actually change something. From that moment, the boy visited the man whenever he could, each meeting giving him new courage. He began to see a path forward, a way to protect his sister without risking too much. The millionaire taught him to observe carefully, to notice small details that could make a difference, and most importantly, to believe that adults could be allies, not just authority figures. The boy felt a new sense of purpose, like a mission that mattered more than anything else in his young life. But the boy also knew it wouldn't be easy. The fiancée was strict, clever, and always watching, and his father, though loving, seemed unaware of the control and fear in his own house. Every step had to be careful, every move planned. Yet for the first time, the boy didn't feel completely alone. He had someone who would listen, who would guide him, and maybe, just maybe, who could help his sister gain the freedom she deserved. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, the boy walked home with a mixture of fear and excitement. He had taken the first real step toward changing things, toward revealing the secret he had carried for so long. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew this. He would no longer stay silent. He would protect his sister, and he would not give up, no matter how hard it got. This was the start of a brave journey, a story of courage, trust, and the power of speaking the truth. And little did the boy know, the bond he was forming with the millionaire would change their lives forever, setting the stage for challenges, confrontations, and life-altering decisions that would test his bravery in ways he had never imagined. The boy returned home that evening with his heart pounding. He felt a mix of hope and fear swirling inside him. The thought of finally sharing the secret of his little sister's restricted life with someone who understood filled him with courage. Yet he worried about what the fiancée might do if she ever found out. That fear had always been there, a shadow over every step his sister took, every time she tried to walk freely. The fiancée's sharp voice would stop her, making her shrink back in. Sadness, and the boy had carried that pain silently for years. That night, as the house grew quiet, the boy sat on his bed with his notebook in hand, ready to write down everything he had observed that day. The millionaire had told him that careful notes would help prove what was happening, and the boy felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He began describing the fiancée's strict rules, how she limited his sister's movements, and even how she seemed to watch their father with a controlled, calculating eye. As he wrote, he realized how long he had been holding this secret, and it made him feel both angry and determined. The next morning, the boy decided he needed to do something small but meaningful. He followed his sister to the garden when the fiancé wasn't looking, pretending to play along. Yet when his sister took a cautious step forward, he whispered encouragement. "It's okay, just a little farther." His sister looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled without fear. That tiny moment felt like a victory, a small step toward freedom, and the boy knew he had to keep going. Days passed, and the boy continued meeting the millionaire in secret, sharing his notes and telling him what happened at home. The millionaire listened carefully, asking questions that helped the boy see things more clearly. He learned how to observe, how to notice small patterns, and how to gather information without getting caught. Each lesson made him feel braver, more capable, as if he was slowly learning to fight for his sister in ways he hadn't imagined before. One afternoon, while walking home from a meeting with the millionaire, the boy overheard a conversation between the fiancé and a neighbor. The fiancée was boasting about how she controlled every part of the children's lives, saying that no one could ever question her authority. The boy's heart raced. He realized how dangerous the situation could become if someone like his father didn't fully understand the impact of her actions. It wasn't just rules or discipline. This was control that affected a child's happiness, freedom, and confidence, and he knew he had to act carefully. That evening, he showed his sister a small trick the millionaire had taught him, letting her step outside the garden and feel the sunlight on her face. It was a tiny act of rebellion, but made her giggle with joy, and the boy felt something powerful stir inside him. He realized that courage didn't always mean big gestures. It could be in the small, quiet moments where freedom and happiness were given back to someone you loved. The bond between the boy and his sister grew stronger, built on trust, understanding, and shared hope. But the boy also knew that this was only the beginning. The fiancé's control was strong, and one mistake could undo everything. He had to plan carefully, gather proof, and wait for the right moment. Yet with each meeting with the millionaire, each tiny victory with his sister, the boy's confidence grew. He understood that he was no longer powerless. He had an ally, a plan, and the courage to protect his sister from the unfairness she had endured for so long. As the moon rose that night, casting silver light over the quiet streets, the boy whispered to himself, "I will not let anyone take her freedom away." He clenched his notebook tightly, feeling the weight of the secret he carried, but also the strength of the hope he had found. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, surprises, and choices that could change everything. Yet for the first time, he believed that justice, courage, and love could overcome fear, and that the truth he carried could finally set them free. Little did the boy know, the moment of revelation was closer than he thought, and the decisions he made in the coming days would bring the fiancé, his father, and even the millionaire into a confrontation that would test his bravery like never before. This was the turning point, where secret courage would collide with hidden control, and the boy's life, and his sister's, would be forever changed. The boy woke up early that morning with a determined feeling he had never experienced before. The air was crisp, and the sunlight spilled into his room, but he hardly noticed the world outside. His mind was focused on one thing: helping his little sister taste freedom, even if only for a moment. Every day, he had watched her shrinking under the fiancé's control, and every day, it hurt more. Today, he decided he would take a bold step, a small act of bravery that could change everything. As he quietly prepared breakfast for his sister, he noticed her eyes lighting up at the smell of warm toast. The boy smiled, whispering, "Eat quickly, we have a little adventure today." She looked puzzled but trusted him completely, and that trust filled the boy with courage. He knew that even a tiny act of kindness or freedom could give her hope, something she had been missing for so long. When the fiancé stepped out for errands, the boy seized the opportunity. Taking his sister's hand, he led her to the garden, the place that had been forbidden territory for so long. "Just a little walk," he whispered. "We won't go far, I promise." His sister hesitated, But the boy's confidence reassured her, and together they stepped outside, feeling the fresh breeze against their faces. The sunlight touched their skin like warmth they had forgotten existed, and for a few precious minutes, the world felt safe and free. The boy noticed the joy on his sister's face, her small feet moving quickly over the grass, and it gave him a sense of power he had never felt. Not power to punish or control, but the power to protect and restore. Every laugh she let out felt like a victory, and every tiny step she took was a silent rebellion against the unfairness she had endured. The boy realized that courage could be quiet, careful, and gentle, yet still powerful enough to challenge injustice. As they returned inside, the boy's heart raced, knowing the fiancée could return at any moment. Yet he didn't feel fear as strongly as before. He had a plan, and he had hope, and that made him feel stronger than ever. He began documenting these small victories in his notebook, writing down the exact moments, the smiles, and the laughter. The millionaire had taught him the importance of evidence. But now, the boy realized that these notes were more than proof. They were reminders of what he was fighting for. Later that day, the boy met the millionaire in their secret spot, excitement and nerves swirling together. "I did it!" he exclaimed quietly, showing the notebook filled with new entries. The millionaire smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "See? Courage isn't about fighting loudly or recklessly," he said. "It's about choosing the right moments and protecting those who can't protect themselves." The boy felt a surge of confidence, realizing that even though he was small, his actions mattered. His sister's joy was proof that bravery could come in quiet, meaningful steps. But the fiancée was not blind, and her suspicion was growing. The boy knew she was clever, always watching for the smallest hint of rebellion. Every day became a delicate balance between hope and danger. Each decision had to be calculated, each moment measured. Yet the boy's determination never wavered. He understood that fear was only temporary, but courage and love could leave a lasting impact. That evening, the boy tucked his sister into bed, brushing her hair back gently. "Tomorrow, we'll do it again," he whispered, "a little more freedom each time." His sister smiled sleepily, trusting him completely, and that trust was a light in the boy's heart, a light that reminded him why he could never give up, why he had to keep going, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As he lay in his own bed that night, the boy thought about the future, about the confrontation that was inevitable. The fiancée's control could not last forever, and soon the truth would have to come out. But for now, he had small victories, courage that grew each day, and a plan forming in his mind. This was not just about walking in the garden anymore. It was about standing up, speaking out, and protecting the people he loved. The boy closed his eyes, determined and hopeful, knowing that the days ahead would test him like never before. But he also knew something more important. Courage, even in a small child, could shake the foundations of fear and control, and the journey of bravery had only just begun. The boy knew the time for small victories was coming to an end. He could feel it in the air, in the way the fiancée watched their every move with sharper eyes. Her control was growing stronger, her patience thinner, and her suspicion more dangerous. The boy understood that he needed help beyond his own courage, and the millionaire had promised that help was coming. It was a thought that filled him with both relief and nervous excitement. One afternoon, the millionaire invited the boy to his office, a grand space filled with sunlight, books, and a quiet sense of authority. "You've been very brave," the man said, gesturing to the notebook filled with observations. "But now it's time to take the next step, a step that must be done carefully, with strategy." The boy nodded, his heart racing. He had prepared for this moment, but the weight of responsibility pressed on his small shoulders. The millionaire began explaining how they could approach the situation, how they could gather proof of the fiancée's controlling behavior, and how they could make sure the father understood the truth without causing unnecessary conflict. "Sometimes adults don't notice what's happening at home," the millionaire said, "but when they see evidence clearly, they can't ignore it." The boy listened intently, absorbing every detail, feeling both empowered and anxious. The next day, the boy put the plan into action, carefully documenting each rule the fiancée imposed, Each time she stopped his sister from moving freely, and even the expressions on her face when she realized he was paying attention, it was risky work. But he knew that evidence was the key to protecting his sister. Each scribble in the notebook felt like a weapon in his hands, a way to fight back without putting them in immediate danger. Meanwhile, the millionaire had begun to prepare a subtle intervention, reaching out to a trusted friend who knew the father well. They discussed how to guide the father to see the truth, without making the fiancé defensive or causing a scene that could hurt the children. The boy felt the first real spark of hope, imagining a future where his sister could walk freely, laugh freely, and enjoy the life that had been denied to her for so long. One evening, the boy shared a small victory with the millionaire, showing that his sister had taken a few steps in the garden when no one was watching. "Look," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "She smiled today." Really smiled, without fear. The millionaire smiled warmly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "This is why we fight carefully, but we fight," he said. "Every small step counts, and one day, all of this will lead to freedom." The boy felt a surge of pride, realizing that courage could grow with every small act. But the fiancée was cunning, and she began noticing subtle changes, small signs that her control was being challenged. The boy knew that they had to act quickly before she tightened her grip further. He worked silently, strategically, each moment measured, each step calculated. The tension in the house grew, and the boy realized that the time for careful planning would soon meet the moment for bold action. As the millionaire guided him, the boy began to understand the full power of strategy and preparation. Courage alone was not enough. Planning, patience, and timing mattered just as much. He had learned to watch, to wait, and to act only when the moment was right. Every decision was critical, and one wrong move could endanger his sister or undo all their progress. That night, as the boy lay in bed, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The path ahead was dangerous, but he was no longer alone. He had an ally, a plan, and the courage to protect his sister. He understood that soon, the truth would have to come out, and when it did, everything in their lives, his father, the fiancée, and even himself, would change forever. The boy closed his eyes, clutching his notebook tightly. Knowing that the next few days would be the most important of his young life, he whispered to himself, "We will be free soon. I will protect her no matter what." The journey of bravery, trust, and clever strategy had begun, and the boy was ready to face whatever came next. The house felt heavier that morning, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The boy could sense it the moment he woke up, his heart pounding with anticipation and fear. He knew that today might bring the confrontation they had been preparing for. The fiancée had grown suspicious, noticing the small changes in her little sister's behavior. And the boy understood that the careful balance they had maintained for weeks was about to be tested. He looked at his sister, who was playing quietly in the corner, unaware of the tension building around her. Her innocent laughter tugged at his heart. Fueling his determination, he whispered softly, "Stay close to me. Okay? We'll be safe." She nodded, trusting him completely, and that trust made the boy feel a surge of responsibility heavier than anything he had ever carried. When the fiancée came into the room, her expression was sharper than ever. She questioned why his sister seemed happier, why she was asking to go outside more. The boy kept his composure, answering politely but cautiously, hiding the tiny victories they had gained in the garden. Every word he spoke was carefully measured, every glance deliberate. He knew that one slip could ruin everything. Later that afternoon, the millionaire arrived unexpectedly, bringing with him a calm authority that immediately changed the energy in the house. He didn't confront the fiancée aggressively, but he spoke firmly to the father, sharing his observations and presenting the evidence the boy had collected in the notebook. The father's eyes widened as he read the notes, seeing for the first time the subtle but serious control the fiancé had over his children. The fiancée, realizing she was being challenged, tried to regain control, her voice sharp and commanding. "This is nonsense. You don't understand my rules. I'm only trying to protect them." The millionaire stayed calm, his gaze steady. "We are not questioning your intentions, but your actions are hurting the children, and that is what matters." The boy watched silently, feeling a mix of fear and hope, knowing that the truth was finally being seen. The father, shocked and confused, looked at his children and saw the small signs of fear and sadness that had always been there. He realized how much he had overlooked, how blind he had been to the fiancée's strict control. His heart ached, but he knew that action was necessary. That moment was heavy, tense, yet also filled with the possibility of change. The fiancé grew defensive, trying to manipulate the situation, but the evidence was clear, undeniable. The boy felt a strange relief, mixed with adrenaline. As the confrontation unfolded, he realized that courage was not just his alone. Truth and preparation had given him allies, and together they could protect the ones they loved. Every small observation, every note in the notebook, every secret moment in the garden had led to this critical moment. Finally, the father spoke firmly, setting boundaries for the fiancée, explaining that the children's freedom and happiness were more important than control or fear. The fiancée's expression faltered, and though she argued, the father's resolve did not waver. It was a turning point, a clear line being drawn between control and care, between fear and freedom. The boy's sister, sensing the change, stepped forward timidly, her small hand holding his, and for the first time, she felt a sense of safety. Her smile returned slowly, genuine and bright, and the boy felt a rush of pride and relief, knowing that the battle was not over completely. But the first victory had been won. It was proof that bravery, planning, and speaking the truth could overcome even the strongest control. That evening, as the sun set and the house finally grew calm, the boy reflected on everything that had happened. The confrontation had been terrifying, yet it had brought clarity, courage, and hope. He knew the journey ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time, he felt that his sister's freedom and happiness were within reach. The boy held his sister close and whispered, "We did it. We're safe for now." And as they looked at each other, a bond of trust and bravery solidified. They were ready for whatever came next, knowing that courage, love, and truth had the power to change everything. The morning after the confrontation, the house felt different, almost lighter, as if the tension that had hung over them for weeks was finally easing. The boy woke up early, excited yet cautious, knowing that while the first step toward freedom had been taken, the real change was just beginning. His little sister stirred beside him, her small eyes filled with curiosity and the first hint of true confidence he had ever seen. He smiled softly, whispering, "Today, things are going to get better." The father, still shaken but now aware, had taken control in a way he hadn't before. He had sat down with the fiancée and explained clearly that the children's happiness, freedom, and emotional safety were more important than strict rules or control. "I will not allow fear to govern my children's lives," he said firmly, his voice steady and calm. The fiancée tried to argue at first, her face tight with frustration, but the evidence was undeniable. Every note, every observation the boy had shared had made it clear that her behavior had gone too far. The boy watched as the father guided the conversation, showing both authority and care. He felt proud, realizing that truth combined with courage could bring even adults to see what had been hidden. The fiancée finally fell silent, her anger replaced by a mix of resentment and resignation. She realized that her power over the children had been broken, and there was nothing she could do to stop the change. Later, the millionaire returned, quietly observing the shift in the household. He didn't need to speak much. His presence alone reminded everyone that the children were not alone. They had allies, adults who would protect them and support their freedom. The boy felt a surge of relief, knowing that he no longer carried the burden by himself. He had done his part, and now the adults around him were taking responsibility. With the fiancée finally under control, the little sister was allowed to explore the garden freely, to play games she had only dreamed of. Her laughter rang through the house like a bell, and the boy felt a deep sense of victory. This was more than a small act of freedom. It was a sign that love, courage, and determination could overcome fear and control. The boy held her hand as she ran across the grass, feeling the wind on her face. And in that moment, he knew all the struggle had been worth it. The father, now fully aware of the impact of the fiancée's behavior, apologized to both children for not noticing sooner. His eyes filled with tears as he promised to always protect them, to listen, and to support them. The boy felt a warm sense of relief. Knowing that his family was finally beginning to heal, his bravery had inspired change, and his sister's happiness was proof that courage could create real impact. That evening, the family sat together, sharing a quiet meal without tension. The little sister chattered excitedly about her day in the garden, and the boy felt a proud sense of accomplishment. He realized that even though he was young, his actions mattered, his voice had power, and his determination had helped change lives. The millionaire watched silently from a distance, smiling at the children's laughter, knowing that sometimes courage from the smallest person can inspire the greatest change. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, the boy reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the days of fear and restriction to the moments of secret courage and careful planning. Every step had led to this new chapter. He whispered to his sister, "We did it, and we'll keep going together," and she squeezed his hand in return, their bond stronger than ever. The fiancée, now aware that her control had ended, left the room quietly. The lesson clear: authority must never overshadow love, care, and respect. And for the boy, this was more than just a victory over fear. It was proof that bravery, honesty, and persistence could create real change, even in the hardest situations. The house was finally at peace, the children free to laugh, explore, and live without fear, and the boy knew that this was just the beginning of a future filled with hope, courage, and love, a future that he, his sister, and the support of adults around them would shape together, one brave step at a time. The morning sun poured through the windows of the house, warming the rooms and filling the space with a sense of calm the boy had never felt before. The tension that had hung over the family for so long was gone, replaced by quiet laughter, chatter, and the promise of a new beginning. The little sister ran across the garden freely, her small feet kicking up leaves and her laughter ringing like music. And the boy watched her with pride swelling in his chest, knowing that he had helped make this moment possible. The father sat nearby, smiling as he observed his children, a deep sense of gratitude in his eyes. He had learned the hard way that sometimes the truth is hidden in small, quiet observations, that the courage of a child can reveal what even adults might overlook. His relationship with his children had deepened, built on honesty, trust, and understanding. And he silently promised himself that he would never let fear or control dominate their lives again. The millionaire, sitting in the corner with a gentle smile, watched the boy and his sister with quiet satisfaction. He had been a guide, a teacher, and a supporter, but he knew that the real courage had come from the boy himself. From the moment the boy first spoke the truth, from the secret notes he kept, to the careful planning and quiet acts of bravery, the boy had shown a strength beyond his years, and now, that courage had changed lives, bringing freedom and happiness where there had once been fear. The fiancé, no longer able to exert control, had left the household quietly. The lesson clear and undeniable. The house, once filled with tension and restraint, now felt alive with possibility. With each passing hour, the children laughed more freely, exploring their world without fear. Their bond with each other and their father strengthened. Built on trust, courage, and shared experiences, the boy felt a warmth in his heart, realizing that the hardships they had endured had made them stronger and closer than ever. As the evening approached, the boy and his sister sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. The boy held her hand gently, remembering the journey they had taken, the fear, the secrecy, the courage, and finally, the victory. "We did it," he whispered softly. "And it's only the beginning." His sister smiled up at him, her eyes shining with trust and love. And in that moment, the boy felt that he could face anything, as long as he had courage and someone to believe in. The father joined them, placing his hands on both their shoulders, and said, "You have both shown me what bravery really is." His voice trembled with emotion, and the boy realized that courage could inspire even the strongest adults. The millionaire nodded silently, understanding that this family had learned one of life's most important lessons. That truth, love, and courage are more powerful than control or fear. That night, as the children slept peacefully, the boy reflected on everything that had happened. From the secret notes he had kept to the careful meetings with the millionaire, every step had mattered. Every small act of bravery, every moment of care and protection had led to freedom. And he understood something even more profound. That standing up for what is right, even when it feels impossible, can create change that lasts a lifetime. The house was no longer just a place to live. It was a home filled with laughter, trust, and hope, a place where the children could grow freely, dream boldly, and live without fear. The boy knew that the journey had been hard, but the rewards were immeasurable. His sister's freedom and happiness were proof that courage, honesty, and determination could overcome even the darkest challenges. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, the boy felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the family was safe, that love and trust had triumphed, and that the future was bright. A journey that began with fear and secrecy had ended with hope, courage, and freedom. And the boy knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and his sister could face them together, with bravery in their hearts and the certainty that truth always finds a way to shine.